in the same package. So you can just go here again, or just right click new class, or click here, this icon, new Java class. Okay, we'll call this one here read input. Just put that static void main in there as well. So here's our read input class. Okay. To read data from the user, the console basically. If you see the word console or the command window, they all mean the console window. Okay. Each IDE they have different. It looks differently. Also, how they interact is also very different. So when you see that in Eclipse, it might look kind of weird how things show up in the console, but it still should be functional. So when you read data, you can do one of two ways. Well, the first method doesn't work in Eclipse. So usually you do something like system.console, okay, and the program .read line, right? And then you have to read that into another variable. In this case, you can do something like a string for now. We'll go with string later on. But just say we put here name is equal to that. Okay, this is the simplest way to read data, read a user input from the keyboard. This one here has some errors, and most IDEs is not really friendly. As you can see, if I were to run this command, and then you would see that it might crash in Eclipse. Let's just say it doesn't work. Okay. It works fine if you were to do this on the console, on the command line, but not in Eclipse. So I don't recommend using this at all here. If you to do on the console, that's fine. It should work. So that's why, it doesn't even mention in the book. I'm not sure if it did. I don't recall reading that in there, but just so you know that is one way how you can read data. So the typical way is to import a class called the Java utility class to read, and let's call this class called scanner. So you need to create an object type of scanner type, and some people use a KBD for keyboard. I usually use input for reading input. It doesn't matter. It's just a variable name. Okay, so that will be instantiated with the keyword new because it's a class, it's an object. So we put new scanner. Okay, and it takes one parameter in here, and the parameter is system.input. As soon as you do that in Eclipse, it has a red squiggly line under the word scanner here. Either direction is fine, and then you just basically mouse over that, and then just choose the one that says import scanner. Okay, and it will import that class automatically for us up here in the import section. So now what this one does is it creates an input stream that allows us to read data from the console. And we're going to use this input object here to access the read line. So instead of saying system console here, we'll just replace this whole thing with the input. And then, not read line, but we'll just put read. Let's see what doesn't like it. Not read, yeah, next. We have a bunch of next and the next line. Okay. It has next line. There should be more. Okay, you have a next decimal, next byte, next boolean, next float, next double. Okay, so it depends on what type of data you're reading into. Just remember again, everything that is read from the console is going to be of type string by default. Okay, same thing we output it to console. is going to be converted to string as well. So, but Java has a built-in function you can use that it will convert right away into the data type that you want. In this case, I'm reading string, so I was just going to say next. Okay, read next means read the next input from the user. So when the program runs, when it reaches line 11, it's expecting input from the user, and it will pause the statement there until you actually enter something here. So after that, let's just say we're going to print it out. SOUT, control spacebar, and say your name is, right? Your name is, and then we'll put concatenator here plus name. Okay, very simple. And if you save and run, again, depending on the IDE that you're using, did you do anything? It doesn't do anything. Let's see. What to put next line? Oh, I forgot to put. Did I forgot to put the paren? I don't know. I thought I did. Let's try one more time. Great, doesn't take it. But next line. Does yours do anything? No? Just blank? Oh, maybe, okay, maybe my console is not visible. Yeah, you should see something. Did I close my console? Oh, yeah, I mean, it's there. You just don't see it. This is one of those errors. Right? Yeah. Output, right? Your name is exactly. Right. So you put Joe or Joey, right? So there it is. And this is, I just, caught myself here. The reason why we didn't see was, I mean, how do you know that you're expecting to put a name or something, right? And so typically when you read the input, before you issue the read line or the next line, you should also output a message to say enter your name, right? And we'll use just a print line, so the cursor doesn't go to the next line. So now that I know that okay, it's expecting an input. If you don't put that there, and you get what I got. I thought it's not working. Okay, so again, just clarify, and then tell the user what you expect it to read. Okay, if you run again, so now we know, we see that, okay, expect a name. Okay, so that's how you read data from the console. And you'll see that sometimes it might look weird. Your cursor might be blinking over here, it's not here, and all over the place, and so on. Again, just depend on the IDE, so it doesn't really affect your output for your program, just based on the IDE. Okay, so that's for reading input. We're reading a string. Now, if you were to add another one, we can say, let me copy these two lines. We'll add, so enter your age. We'll expect this age to be a number. Okay, so we'll put int here, and we'll put age, and then read, not next line, but we'll read from the next int. So we'll convert that automatically into an integer type. If you don't do that, you have to convert it into integer before you can assign it to an integer type. Okay, in other words, if we just say next, you see that's an error because next is reading as a string, and the string cannot be assigned to an integer type. So if you do it this way, you have to do like this. You have to convert it. You would say integer dot parse int. It's a long thing here. And you put that whole thing inside a string this way. So you have two options. One is the long way, the integer type. Again, we'll deal with this later on too. But for now, you can see that I can do this as well. I can say read the input from next. So if I enter 45, it will be like that. Okay, we have the double quotes on it because it's a string. And then we're going to convert this string of 45 into, we're going to parse it and convert it into an integer type so that it will match my age, which is of integer type. Okay, so that conversion needs to be done there. That's one way. Sometimes you have to do that. And when do you do that? Well, you do that when you have something like not reading from the input. When you read it, then you can do that right away, right? So again, I'm just going to copy this. So when you read it, I just showed you a while ago, you can do something like read input dot next int. It does the conversion right away. So that's shortcut. You use this part when, let's say, for example, you have a string type. Let me close this down here. If I happen to have something like string n is, 34, okay, and you want to convert this string to an integer type, then that's when you need that thing here. I can say int a is equal to integer dot parse int, and then parse the n to type integer. So that is when you will convert this string character 34 to an integer so you can do some calculation. Okay, so you need to do that in certain situations. But if you're reading directly from the input, then just use this built-in function. It's much shorter and much easier. Okay, so you can go ahead and then run that. It's going to ask you to, and then let's add the output here as well. Add another line and just say you are age plus years old. Okay. So we'll ask both questions first. We ask the user into this data, and then we'll print them out at the end. We'll not do any type of validation later on. You will have to make sure that the actual number is the data input is a number and not a character. If it is, then it will fail, right? So we'll assume that we'll enter the correct numbers. So run this program. The name will be like Joel. Name is 23, and age is 23. Now you see that your name is Joel and you are 23 years old. Okay? So every input you must assign that to a variable, or you can print that out. Notice again, if I run it again, and if I enter, Jake, and if I enter like ABC, right, you have an error because it's the wrong type. Because I'm reading of type integer, I'm expecting that to be integer, and here you enter a character or a string, so therefore that's incorrect. So when you do this, before you assign the values to age, later on when you get better, we will learn how to parse this input, and we can restrict it so that only an integer type can be entered by the user. Otherwise, you keep asking until a correct data type is entered. Okay? So to prevent this type of errors. But we'll assume that everything is entered as expected. So that's integer. There is one for next byte, next double, next float. Okay, if you want to read a decimal number, then use either the float or the double type. Okay. So that's for reading input. Very simple. So any questions on these reading input output? Okay, once you are done, then usually you want to close the scanner. Because right now it's open in the system, and if you leave it open like that, then because you can create a lot of them, not just one. I'm not sure why you would need them, but you're going to have like input 2, right? Once you create one, then it consumes some system resources. And if you have a lot of them and you leave them unclosed, then eventually they can consume memory and you run out of RAM. Okay, and then your system shuts down. So when you're done, then basically down here just say input.close. And you close that input connection. So the garbage collector, this is garbage collector built into Java, it will come in and clean the garbage out. So it frees the memories and then reallocates this memory back. Okay, so always close it when you're done. Just for good practice. In the real world, in a real application, you should always close it. But in this book, this class, if you don't close it, it's not going to crash. Okay, it's not going to cause any problems. You won't get a warning saying you should close this or close that, but still, your program should still run. And maybe some IDEs might force you to close it. Okay, but if it does, just close the input